There is a classic dish that we know about today that's called Welsh Rarebit. But in the 18th century, which is where this term comes from, it's actually Welsh Rabbit. In fact, every time I mention it in a video, people try to correct the terminology. The terminology actually changes completely at about 1920, when Rarebit completely takes over for the terminology. But in the 18th century, it was Welsh Rabbit. So what is a Welsh Rabbit? Well, it is basically toast with a cheese or cheesy sauce melted over the top. It is a wonderful dish. It is one of my favorite things ever. If I've got a choice for a comfort food, this is it. I love this particular dish. Now, why was it called a Welsh Rabbit? Well, it had to do with the English making fun of the poor Welsh and the fact that they couldn't afford game animals and didn't eat them, and so instead of eating meat, they were just going to eat cheese on a simple slice of bread. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'll probably rather eat cheese on bread than I would eating a rabbit, but that's neither here nor there. There are a lot of different terms for it. You'll find versions of it called English Rabbit, Scotch Rabbit, and some other terms like that. They all have their own little tweaks to them, but Welsh Rabbit in general is a wonderful little dish that the term pops up about 1725. Really isn't heard of before that, even though the dish kind of shows up before that. It's just called by different names, typically Welsh names that I probably couldn't pronounce. So if it was Welsh Rabbit in 1725 and kind of stays with that name, where does rarebit come from? Well, that's interesting. So it first shows up, as far as I know, at about 1785. And it's inside of the definition of Welsh Rabbit. It kind of says something like, you know, Welsh Rabbit, it's toasted cheese on bread, and sometimes it's called rarebit. This is in the Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue by Francis Gross. And this book is a lot about euphemisms and strange words that mean something else, generally in the criminal kind of world. So it's interesting that it shows up in that place first. So it's always been a kind of a joke, even in 1725, calling it Welsh Rabbit. And the fact that it changes into rarebit is just like another joke on top of it. I'm not sure exactly where they were going with it, but it's interesting that it stays Welsh Rabbit for 60 years until the name starts to morph. And by the time we get to 1920, you don't see the rabbit term anymore at all. So here's the little definition out of the Dictionary of the Vulgar Tongue. It says, rabbit, a Welsh rabbit, bread and cheese toasted, i.e. a Welsh rare bit. That's two different words, not rare bit, but a rare bit, or possibly a rare bite. This is a dish that's certainly inexpensive, so it can be eaten by the rich and poor alike. It makes a great snack or kind of a side thing. If you're in a situation where it's the main dish, well, it'll work for that too. It is sometimes not necessarily called Welsh Rabbit, but just toasted cheese. So let's figure out how we're going to make this toasted cheese. We don't want it to be super simple. We don't want to just put cheese on toasted bread, which some of the recipes are like that. But we want to go to a slightly earlier version where we're going to work on the cheese spread itself. So the 17th century version of this didn't even have the bread in it. It was really about making this kind of cheese sauce, maybe even cooking it into a tart. But we're going to be putting it on toast. Let me tell you, this is going to work out great. There are so many recipes for Welsh Rabbit, and a lot of them are simply put cheese on toasted bread. But we want to do that top-notch one. So what we're going to do here is take a cheese. Now, they didn't necessarily usually talk about the specific variety of cheese because in the 18th century, most of the cheeses that people dealt with were local cheeses. So a cookbook wouldn't bother to tell you about which cheese to use because in your area, it might be called something totally different. So if they do generally talk about the variety, they will say something like Cheshire cheese because Cheshire cheese was exported all over the world. We've got here a standard cheddar. We're going to chop this up into little pieces and we're going to melt it with butter, about 1/3 butter to 2/3 cheese here, and we're going to add in a nice large spoonful of a mustard. You want a kind of a nice fancy mustard that you find at the grocery store. That's going to really send it right over the top. So that's going to make the best Welsh Rabbit ever. So do they look good? Yes. Do they smell good? No. They smell great. I can't wait to try this out. It's a fun recipe. I mean, you just kind of make it up as you go along, like so many of these 18th century recipes. It's not like they give you amounts, but this one isn't tough. Let's find out how it turned out. This is the thing, right? This cheesy sauce on toasted bread in front of the fire, it doesn't get any better than this Welsh Rabbit.